Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blue Corner. I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Theo, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Meshna,
Hi.
He is our phys chem teacher.
physics and chemistry.
Yes.
So, how long have you been at ISB?
Well, I started here in 2007. I retired from public school in 2007 and saw an ad for teaching chemistry here, IB chemistry, applied and got the job and did it for 3 years. After that, a principal who I was very close to asked me to come out to Neshoba Regional High School and teach physics for a year, just for 1 year. And I took the job, but I had to give up this job. When I finished that 1 year, I asked to come back, but there were no openings because they already hired another teacher for that chemistry job. A year later, Mrs. Lemp called me. She was the middle school director.
Yeah.
And she said, we have an emergency. I know you don't teach middle school, but we need a teacher right away for 8th grade physical science. And coincidentally, I was making a website for 8th grade physical science teachers, the ones that you guys use.
Easy as pie.
And I couldn't believe it, and I said I would do it. And she says, just for 1 year. And I said, that's fine. And that was 5 years ago, and I'm still teaching it.
So it's only been 5 years.
Well, I started in 2007 and did it for 3, and I skipped a year. So I must have skipped 2 years, but I've been here about 10 altogether, if you add everything all up, almost.
I thought you'd be here longer, to be honest.
Well, I started teaching here after I retired from public school, so I was about 61. And now I'm 72.
Whoa.
Wow.
You're like almost the same age as Donald
I
Trump.
think those years add up. I must have done something else here. But anyway, that's about it.
So what do you do at ISB exactly? Like,
What do I do?
yeah, what do you do?
What's your job description?
I come in, I teach you guys, and I teach the B period class, and I go home and ski. That's what I did yesterday. After class, I went skiing. But mostly what I do when I'm not at ISB is do my website and take care of my granddaughter so my daughter can work. And that's the most fun I've ever had in my life. I'll show you some videos. Want to see some pictures?
Yeah, sure.
She's 2 years old, and she's the cutest, smartest thing that's ever lived.
Aw.
And today we spent about 4 hours together. We rolled around. I push her around in a little car. We get out to the park. We went out to McDonald's. She climbs up with these little tubes things that the McDonald's place has and laughs. And then we go home and we play capture.
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 What's that?
What's that?
She jumps on me and I grab her.
Oh.
She's only 2. And I hold her tight and she tries to get out. I don't hold her extremely tight, and I always make sure she can get out. But she doesn't think that I'm letting her get out. And she struggles and struggles and struggles. We do that for half an hour until she's so tired, it's nap time, she falls asleep and I'm in trouble. It's so much fun.
And so, how would you describe the way that you work with 8th graders? How would you describe it?
Well, that's something I keep telling you kids. I've been teaching seniors and juniors most of my career. 2 years I took off to do college, to teach college. I love 8th grade. I've said this to the parents, I've said it over and over again. The reason I love 8th grade is because 8th graders have reached a level of intellectual maturity so you can teach them hard stuff, do math and really complicated concepts, but they're also still just a little bit like kids and they are filled with wonder. So it's easy to make them go, wow, just blow something up or make something change color. And they get very excited. So it's the best job I've ever had. I love 8th grade.
You know, you mentioned bully stuff up. Let's talk about how at the beginning of the year
Oh, yeah.
you
with
blew
the
something
hydrogen and
up.
oxygen.
Walk us through what happened and then the repercussions.
Well, that was an interesting thing. You saw the reaction. I took hydrogen and oxygen and I put it in a balloon. Now I do this every year.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do is, it's a very loud explosion, and I go around and tell all of the teachers to not be concerned, but I
Right.
forgot about one teacher upstairs in the math room. And the explosion was particularly loud that year, and they freaked out because they didn't know what it was.
Oh.
And it caused a slight problem.
Like what?
Well, they got very nervous, but we calmed them down. Once they figured out what was going on. and they didn't. The principal didn't tell me I couldn't do it next year. So if I can still work here next year, I think I'll do it again because it's the most fun part of the year.
Right.
Plus, it teaches you something about what happens when hydrogen and oxygen come together to form water.
That's interesting. I mean, there's been a lot of other rumors about that explosion.
Yeah, well, we won't go into that.
And let's go back into a little bit of a more personal life type question. Like, what do you do with for your hobbies?
I have a bunch of hobbies. Construction. I ski a lot. I bike. I hike up mountains. I don't backpack though. Just day trips. No, backpack's too much. Too heavy.
Could you expand on construction?
Well, I've been doing construction most of my adult life. I built a house back in 1979 and 80, and I built a huge recycling center in town in New Ipswich, New Hampshire back in 87. And I've done construction remodeling houses, and my daughter married a guy who's a contractor. And
Right.
I live in I own a three-family home, and they decided, instead of buying a house, to move downstairs and take up the two front apartments. I live in the back, it's a three-family. And so what they decided to do was remodel downstairs to make it pretty. The house is 200 years old, and they wanted to make the kitchen modern. So my son-in-law and we're reconstructing the kitchen. We ripped down all the walls, putting in new wiring, new sinks, just making it beautiful and modern. And then we're going to do the living room after that. And I hope it'll be done by June.
Oh.
And now I'll have just one tent, my daughter and her husband and their little 2-year-old that I take care of.
Right.
So they'll be my
Okay,
neighbors.
so
You
we
know-
have a
yeah.
question in the chat from Nathan. What mountain do you ski?
The mountain I most often ski at is Sunapee in New Hampshire. I also ski at Okemo, but this year something different happened. Usually I only ski about 4 or 5 times a year because I
Right.
can't get up. My daughter gave me a season's pass to Mount Massachusetts
Watch you sit.
in Princeton. I live 20 minutes from there.
Oh.
So
So it's just
I have a pass, and if I have 2 or 3 hours, I just run up. I sneak in the front because I go at 10 or 11 o'clock, people have left. I get my boots on my car, I get my skis, I run up, I do maybe 5 or 10 runs.
Right.
I might stop at the pub on the mountain on the way back and have a beer, and I can just go home and I can correct papers, do whatever I need to do, or work on the construction. So I ski almost every day now,
That's
except weekends.
awesome.
The pass is only good on weekdays.
Oh.
It's an old man's pass, and it's very cheap, and I can ski almost every day.
It's great.
It's really great.
Wow. Okay, so moving further back into the past, what was your favorite subject when you were in middle school?
History.
History?
Oh.
I always loved history. I was a history major in college. I loved history.
Right.
And then I took a course called The History of Science, and I was blown away. I
Oh.
didn't have much background in science, and I didn't have much math either.
Right.
So I said, I'm switching my majors. And I went and took a physics course, and I didn't understand it. I couldn't understand it because I didn't have enough math. So I dropped out, and I reapplied and took 2 years of math,
Okay.
caught up with my math, retook the physics. I was very old when I was finished because I had to switch. And I got my degree in science when I was 31 years old. I finally got it.
31.
But I took a lot of chemistry. And after that, I went to 2 more colleges. I got 2 more degrees. One was the Polytech and one in the University of Washington.
Do you actually use those other 2 majors?
Well, one is chemistry and one was more physics. So I used it to teach.
How many years was that?
Like a lot of years. While I was teaching, I was going to school. Most of these were summers or nights to do the second 2 degrees. And it was amazing because I thought I knew what I was doing when I first started teaching physics and chemistry. As the years went on, I realized I didn't know so much. And as I learned more and I saw how much confusion the kids had and how much confusion I had when I first started learning physics as a history major, I realized where all the conceptual difficulties are coming from. When a kid says something, I know, I know exactly what your problem is. I had that same problem when I was learning it from being a history major. But if you notice, when I teach my classes in science, there's always a lot of history underneath. That's because I love the history first.
Mm.
And the history of science is fascinating to me. Once they started measuring things, all of a sudden everything changed. And that's when the scientific method was developed.
So you think that measurement is the base of everything?
Of science, yes.
Of science.
Think about everything that you measure every day. The size of your shirt, how many calories in your food, how many gallons of gasoline, the price per gallon, the octane rating. Everything you do has numbers to it now.
Right.
Because once they started measuring, then they started understanding. And you cannot divorce math from science.
Right. So, do you have any pets?
No. No, we didn't.
You
I mean, we
don't?
did have a pet. It was a cat. It was called Kit. And the kit was probably 20 years old, and it was pooping and peeing all over the house. And one time I dropped a coat, and I forgot to hang it up. And when I went to hang it up the next day, it didn't smell good.
Oh.
And then the cat died
Oh.
from being old.
Oh. I thought you
And
killed it it
because of the experience with all of the defecation and urination, I said, I don't really want another pet. But we have a little gray stone out the yard with Kit on it and the date of the death. It's very sad. It's a
Aw.
very sad thing.
So sad.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Kit. I feel like tomorrow a lot of the 8th graders are going to remember Kit, and it's going to be a
Yeah.
running joke.
Poor Kit.
Poor Kit. I feel like that's going to be a saying now. It's just
Every
like,
time I mow the lawn, I say, oh, there's Kit.
oh, did you actually bury it there?
Yeah.
Oh.
The corner.
Oh, no.
And I've never.
Oh,
Mr. Michelin.
Well, no, because the grass goes into the ground, and it fertilizes the ground. It fertilizes Kit.
Wait, you can fertilize a dead cat. Is that how it works now, Mr. Michelin?
Well, it helps them to decompose and go into the soil.
Okay.
And when they go into the soil, they leach and they get sucked into the roots, and they become part of the trees and become part of nature again. It's a way of being reborn.
Circle
Alright.
of life.
It's a little boost.
It's a little boost. How long has been Kit gone?
5 years now.
5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
Gone but never forgotten.
No, never forgotten. My wife won't let her. My wife wants another cat, and I just say, no.
No. So, what made you want to be a teacher?
All through high school and after high school, for 10 years, I was a photographer, and I thought I loved photography. I thought I did, but I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because in those days, the pictures could only be done by going into the darkroom and developing them. And you spend most of your time in the darkroom. And I'm a person that never stops talking. I wake up talking. I talk. I love talking.
What do you
And
say when you wake up while you're talking?
I also love people. I'm just so, when I meet someone new, I ask them a million questions. Where are you from? How old are you? What's your mother's name? And I discovered that I was very unhappy because I was always in the dark room alone. Not only is it dark, but you're alone. And when I was in my 20s, I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I want to be a teacher. And somebody said, what?
Did you know the salary before then?
It's funny. The salary starts out bad for teachers, but it gets better. And in public school, you have a lot of benefits.
Right.
And you retire with a good retirement. Plus, don't forget, you get summers off. And I used every summer of my career to go to school. That's when I did my other degrees.
Oh,
And
okay.
I love learning too. And so it was my first day teaching, walking into a public school. I looked around at the kids and I went, I'm home. This is where I belong. I knew immediately that was, and I've been doing that now ever since 1977. That was my first year teaching. And I love it now more than ever, but now it's easy because I only teach 2 days a week. And I ski the rest of the time.
Who has been your best class so far?
Your class.
Actually?
Really?
I really love them all.
Really?
Every year I say you're my favorite class. And it's true because I have a poor memory and I forget how much last year was my favorite class.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So,
Makes sense.
last question before we run out of time. What was the best experience you had as a teacher?
Oh my God, that's a big question. Teaching is weird because I've had many good experiences, but my best experience, which is my best experience, which is reoccurring, is when a kid goes, "Oh my God, I get it." That's my best experience.
That's your best experience.
Yeah, when the kids have epiphanies, I go, "Ah!" I have an epiphany right along with the kid. That's the best thing about teaching, when kids get something that's hard and they figure it out. That's my best experience.
Well, I think that's how much time we have right now. This was a really interesting interview.
Good.
And
Thank you for taking the time.
thank you so much
Thanks
for being
having
with
me.
us.
I'm Theo. This is my co-host Josh. Thank you. Special thanks to our guest, Mr. Meshna, and we'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Bye.
Great, man.